Hello to those listening. This is an orator here with the freest of speech. And this time, I would like to talk about something I've seen while looking at about how social movements come about. Now, when you look at these social movements, whether you're looking at the social justice movement or feminism or hell, even Black Lives Matter, they all share similar origins. And these origins are based in the most important aspect of a movement. And the most important aspect, you may say, is people power or a complaint. No, those are not really important factors to a movement. The important factor is time. Time is very important because time is how you get your message out. And when you look at these social movements, the things you see is that it's always upper middle class that start these movements. And it has to be them because those on the bottom rungs, the complaints that they're given, they're not their own. Because let's be serious, if you live in upper middle class, you don't really have to struggle that hard. You're not struggling. You're living pretty nice. So you make the complaints for the people underneath you. And the reason you can make these complaints is because you have time. Whereas if you're poor and you have to work two jobs to stay afloat, you ain't got time to be spending 12, 20 hours a week walking around protesting, holding a sign. If you work a physically demanding job, you ain't trying to do 8 and 10 hour shifts and then go stand outside. You want to go home and rest. If you same principle as you have a mentally demanding job. And these are the jobs that the lower rungs of society, the poor people, actually do. And it's these upper middle class people who take their complaints and walk around because why? They have the time to do so. And because it's always these upper middle class people who complain on their behalf, it is then easy for these other people to then just step in and say, yeah, I agree with that. Because you know why? Because I'm tired of having to, you know, work two jobs or these physically demanding jobs or mentally demanding jobs. I'm tired of working to try to stay afloat when I want to try to get ahead. And that's what they're doing. But the people who initiate these things, the people who start these things, aren't them. They're other people who don't actually have to take that hit. And when you look at social movements, it always seems to come down to that fact right there that it's always an upper middle class person who people who start this stuff, but yet they truly are not affected by it. But because they're saying the complaints for the people who don't have the time to make the complaints themselves, those people just follow behind them and say, you know what, I support these people. And the thing is, these people who are supporting them do not know what these movements are about. And a real world example is I've had multiple discussions with people who support Black Lives Matter because they're black, or support feminism because they're women, or support social justice because they believe in equality. And then, as I explain to them aspects of this movement that they know nothing about, they look at me like, well, I still support them because, well, I'm black and they're black, or I'm a woman and that's a woman, and I believe in this. But like these people that you're supporting, they're not you. Their leadership don't have to live the same kind of life that you do. But because these people are out there making the complaints that they themselves want to, that they do not have the time to make, people are willing to accept it. And this brings out the most worst parts of every social movement. And it comes out because people do not willingly give up power. People will always take that power to profit from it. which which eliminates any good that a social movement can actually achieve. Now, I know you, if you're listening to this, you may be saying, wait a minute, the civil rights movement did good things for black people and blah, 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 blah. But did it actually really? Because in the civil rights movement, all they really did was try to get the government to enforce its own laws when it comes to things like voting. They wanted to end segregation. You don't need a law to end segregation. You can end segregation with the power of your dollar. If companies and stores saw that their policies made people not come to spend the money there, they would change automatically. No law necessary. If you look at something like affirmative action is actually not very helpful. And the reason affirmative action isn't helpful is because as long as you can make the government say you are a minority or a victim class, you gain access to it. So you can be a part of the majority of a country and still get access to those benefits. It becomes the oppression Olympics. So whoever has the highest oppression level gets access to these funds, gets access to this protection, or gets access to these privileges. And when you do these things, when people gain these powers, I've always likened all social movements to, the same. Whether you're talking about guns or you want to talk about, let's say, feminism, or any other one you feel, any other movement you think about, feel free to put it in there. And I'll say this: whenever you do these movements, once you've achieved whatever you're trying to achieve, reiterating that people do not willingly give up power, what do you do next? I mean, there is very few times a social movement activates, does what it's supposed to, accomplishes goals, and stops. Very few times that actually happens. What normally happens is these individuals who are now the leaders of these groups, who are profiting from these groups, then create new enemies. They become more hyperbolic. They create more dissent because this is how they make their money. Now, do I think social movements are useful? Yes, when done correctly. If you initiate a social movement and you say this is our goal, for example, let's just say gay rights, gay people said we want the right to marry like everybody else. Once you accomplish that, you go away. You're done. But that's not what's happening. That's not whatever will happen. They will find a new enemy. They will pick new fights because, again, at the end of the day, it's all about profiteering. It is capitalism at its finest. And this was an orator here with the freest of speech. Thanks for listening.